the way that I look at it is that you have to have that epiphany, right? You have to have that aha moment, and you had that, right? And so I always talk about that. Like, you have to have that, like, aha, oh man, you know what? Geez, I really do think I want to do this, and you've got to have this overwhelming curiosity of what would I be like if I was to be the healthiest version of myself. I just wonder what would happen. You got to have that, because that's what's going to drive you, is that curiosity. You got to say to yourself, God, in 6 months, if I put a lot of work into this, I bet I'm going to look amazing. I just want to see what that looks like, and then you get there, and then that 6 months turns into like, okay, this isn't good enough, but I'm so proud of what I've done. And,
Yeah.
I've done so well for myself. I can't ever go backwards now. Let me see what else I can do. I'll go another 6 months. Man, what would I be like if I did this for 2 years? Oh my God, And so you get that like curiosity thing going in your head, and then you're inspired by yourself, and then you don't recognize that you're inspiring other people. And that's one of the things that's really beautiful about getting really healthy, is that you don't just get healthy for yourself, but you're influencing other people around you also to get healthy, because you're a shining light. You're like shining light on this darkness, and people are going, wow, how did she do that? And so they get curious.
Your health is your wealth. What a concept, right? And why I chose to sit down with Jake Platt, because I do believe that most of us hear that phrase and it really never permeates until we're faced with certain circumstances that may come across our lifetime. And then do we in turn look for source help, suggestions, guidance, coaching. And Jake, being a masterful health and wellness coach and CEO of Morph Method, is why I chose to sit down and discuss these very, very important subjects, because he and his partner, Rachel Siegel, focus on those who are 40 and older and helping them choose a life for themselves that is of health and wellness. So join me and listen as we discuss this week, part 1, 60th episode on the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast, all about the importance of health and wellness. So join us around the campfire, because here we go. So I want to say thank you, because it's really been a year since we last conversed. And you guys were so great in joining me in that first month of my launch.
Yeah, I remember that.
The reason why I wanted to have you back personally is because I wanted to talk about men's health and the importance of what you see as a man being a health and wellness coach, and the why you got involved with transformation for helping people, especially 50 and older. But men especially, I know you work with women, but men especially, because my observation is that not all men, they may take themselves to the gym to have a body that they think looks good, but they may not take themselves to the doctor, for instance, to get checkups. And for you, who's a transformation coach, I would think that you would, though I don't assume, but being that you've dealt with your own health and wellness, that you would encourage the overall package for the sake of aging and health and wellness as one, advances in life. So that's really what I want to talk with you about today, is the importance of taking action for men, and why it's so important, especially with men who are not known to live as long as women, generally speaking.
Yeah, right. Well, it's a cultural phenomenon, really. That our culture tells us to take it for granted. And so those messages that we're getting, from the time we were born, as being a guy, tough it out, sweep it under the rug, keep it to yourself, hold it in, just grind it out, just, get through it, and so there's a tendency to really be imbalanced when it comes to your health, because you're so I would say driven into, if I can call it, the yang part of life. There's a tendency to be aggressive, and to be domineering, and to be strong, and a lot of times, men particularly don't understand that the soft aspect of their lives are actually where they can cultivate a lot of strength, and that if you were to really focus in on that side of the equation, the really soft arts like meditation, yoga, relaxation exercises, visual exercises, things that are like will keep you stress free, keep you nice and relaxed. Joe Rogan had a really good analogy, a little metaphor. I don't know where he got it from, but he just says, men need to be a warrior in a garden versus being a gardener in a war. And so there's this idea that, and there's just, I really think that men take it for granted that they're going to stay strong, be strong, can get strong, be healthy, can be healthy, all these things. And they sacrifice so much of their life by not paying attention to these softer parts of life that are just so much more magical than what they probably would think they are.
Well, the irony is that the time that we're going to be airing this is going to be in the month of November, which, for many, they associate Thanksgiving, holidays, family time, winding down, celebration, and honoring their legacies of, generations, if in fact they've had that pleasure of having that kind of familia created around them. And the family can be in all, it doesn't have to be your bloodline, but love, life, health, wealth, it all goes hand in hand.
That's right.
And one's choices go hand in hand with all of that. One's decisions that they've made goes hand in hand with that. And so many of us, culturally speaking, are either raised with scarcity or great abundance, meaning like some may never know where to find the next morsel on the table and are undernourished, and others are raised with gluttony and not knowing, how to make good choices for themselves. And as men, as women go through advancing in life, mind, body, spirit changes, hormones change, lifestyles change. Not everyone stays as active, as engaged. People start to hang it up and go into like I've done my part, I'm retiring and checking out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when health becomes, particularly questionable. And that's exactly the time to be really tuning in. And like you said, people in general think, oh, I'm strong, I can climb that ladder and I can hang that Christmas light or that, wreath or that whatever it is, or just change that light bulb, not realizing that one false move can have a positive or not a positive effect, right? And to that note, I think that people need to be really conscious of their efforts put forward in their everyday life, you know, and it takes so little to hurt oneself versus have a long running life of wellness. So when you are engaging with clients, especially men, how do you think that is, do you approach things differently with them to get into their ears and help them make positive transformation?
Yeah, well, it's the way that I look at it is that, we've been sold somewhat of a lie, right? Like we have the way the system is set up, it's set up as mind, body, ego. It's not set up as mind, body, spirit. Okay. And so, what I try to do is I try to, through logic and reason, get the men that I work with to look at things through the logical lens, because men are very you can appeal to men through reason and logic. And so whereas women, you can appeal to them more through emotion. And so so when I'm looking at men, I'm looking at them through this lens of like, what's logical here? Okay. And so because our moral compass is tied to our logic and reasoning, because it's as close to the truth as we're going to find. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at what's currently being messaged to them from our culture, right? And what influences in their environment, how they look at things. And there's a misconception that mental toughness is putting up with your weaknesses and all of your injuries, past injuries, and all these things that you've had happen to you throughout your life. And that it's like a badge of honor to just keep, limping through life like that, and it's really sad to see. And what it really is just a shift in perspective and in getting out of your head and looking at things through a different lens. Like, for instance, we're very magical. I mean, we're a miracle that we're even alive. And so getting men to understand that, this is a spiritual pursuit. It's not so much of an ego pursuit, and that it's not about, putting muscles on and looking really strong and stuff. It's about being able to stay strong and functional and active and healthy for the rest of your life, and so what does that mean? Well, it really means kind of looking at how do you want to live your last 10 years of your life? Do you want to live the last 10 years of your life in a wheelchair with a cane, in pain all the time and always suffering and just having a really, really horrible life, or do you want to live being vibrant and active and strong and functional and being able to do all the things that you love to do, albeit that you're going to be compromised because you're older, but you can still enjoy a lot of the same activities. My gym workouts are much better and more effective now than they've ever been in my life. And I'm in my mid-50s. So it's like, it's available for everyone. It's just that it's the lens that they're looking at it through that's flawed. And so if I can get them to kind of get out of their heads, get out of this limited belief system that they've adopted as part of their identity, and get them to kind of look at this as something that has unlimited potential, and that it is something that is going to lead to something that is extremely magical. That is where that's why I'm trying to make that shift. And so, a lot of the men that I work with they want to do the right thing. Right. And so they're looking at it through a system. They're like, okay, what is this system that I'm trying to implement? Right. And I always say the system is simply this: you have 3 responsibilities. You have a responsibility to heal your body, love your body, and protect your body. And then you have, through that lens, you have the responsibility to help others as leaders to do the same for themselves. And so that is something that is sort of like, well, what does that all mean? Well, it means that, if you want to have a good life, you have to make your health a priority. It can't be, well, I got a bathroom remodel, and and after I get done with my bathroom remodel, I'll start thinking about how I could stop drinking, and get back eating really well. It's like no, it's like that does get well first, then do your bathroom remodel, right? So it's really lopsided. It's backwards. Health is always the first thing that they sweep under the rug, especially if there's any financial investment involved in it. They just don't look at it as something that's important or worth an investment. It looks like something they can kind of wing it and do it on their own, and so they really undermine it quickly. It seems more so than women. Women are a lot more in tune to the value of what health is, whereas men really are not. Like they really sacrifice themselves and have a tendency to really kind of think that they can kind of just do the bare minimum and get away with it.
Well, I think that in my observation, because I work with a lot of men, I mean, I'm in a man's world 24/7. And my observation is men will literally work themselves to death.
That's right.
They will literally work themselves to the grave.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that is a combination of ego and a combination of competition. It's not another form of a competition, consciously or unconsciously. I think it's also ego/pride, also because of the need to deliver. I mean, everybody's scenario is different, whether they're single, married, in partnership, have co-created children or taken on the responsibility of others, whether it be parents or whatever that may be their commitment. But I definitely think that, like women who can put themselves last, as men can also do that in a different sort of way. I think that even if little boys start out in team sports, be it tag football or soccer or baseball or swimming or tennis, whatever they may be introduced to as a child, once they get surpassed high school, most do not go on past high school to be involved with any kind of formulaic, systematic kind of working out, unless they're personally driven to be like, that's the thing that gets their high and gives them that source of fueling themselves consciously, spiritually, what have you. And then they get into the work world, and the work world could be whether they're tending to a field, or they're working on Wall Street, or traveling nonstop and eating fast food or eating on the go, and unconsciously drinking the 1 or 2 or 3 beer or glasses of wine, or smoking whatever they're smoking, be it a cigarette or otherwise. And I think that one loses sight of themselves. I think that if I told you how many conversations I've had with men who don't have an internal medicine doctor that they check in with annually, let alone have a cardiologist, a dermatologist, an eye doctor, a dentist, a urologist, and being pre-med and science oriented, I never understand why this is unfortunately not taught in our society, of the importance of, no, it's not about being at the doctor's, but it's about having a team. This is no different than a team sport. Your doctors should be like your coaches, who help support you be the best specimen you can be, so you can keep showing up. Because we all both know that none of this is guaranteed, no matter how well you do in this factor, right? But that's all a part of it. And, you know, when I say to a man, do you have a urologist? And they're like, why would I have a urologist? Well, because, you know, you need to scope things. You need to know that things are healthy, not just your muscle and not just your vegetables, not your balanced protein. It's like all things, because we don't know what's always going on internally as well as how we look externally, right?
Yeah, that 100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like that is, yeah, that is very clear. That was really well put. And the thing about men in particular, I believe, is that they do wait until there is a problem before they go see the doctor, right? And so the whole concept of preventative care is just out the lunch, you know. And so and it's unfortunate because it is a cultural thing. It is something where, you know, a lot of men are very driven. And so they will, like you said, drive themselves into their grave, you know, and they get a lot of pleasure out of being successful. You know, my argument is like, you're going to be, if you're successful right now with the level of stress you're under and how poor your health is, can you imagine what you would be like if you had excellent health, unbelievable fitness? I mean, you'd be 10 times more productive. You'd be a million times better at what you do. And so, you know, there's a tendency to just think that that they can do the same things as they were doing in their 20s and 30s and keep doing them in their 40s and 50s and 60s. And the problem is they overestimate their ability to be able to handle stress effectively. And so they don't realize how much they're doing to themselves and as far as like adding more stress onto their plate, onto their bodies, than what their bodies are capable of being able to manage. And so, you know, the high cholesterol goes through the roof, their blood pressure goes through the roof. They come down with diabetes. You know, all of a sudden they got heart disease. They've got all kinds of problems, arthritis, and this thing and that thing, and it's because they have neglected the soft side and the value of working on stress management tools that can lower all their stress, which is, you know, making sure they're getting good sleep, right? Making sure they're getting good hydration, making sure that your nutrition's on point, making sure you're exercising, making sure that you're breathing deeply and nice, relaxed, meditating, being mindful, you know, like focusing on keeping your emotions and your thoughts at a higher level, you know, more in the realm of love and compassion and joy and forgiveness and gratitude. And instead, you know, like you said, they're very competitive. And so they'll end up going into some of their ego side of life, the negative part of the ego, which is going to drive themselves into a wall, you know? And so, you know, you get frustrated, you get anxious, you got, you know, this going on, you got that going on, and you can't come up for air. And so I really do believe that women also, you know, they do the same thing. There's a lot of women that are very successful, that are very driven, and business women, and they do an amazing job. And they also have to think about health as well. And I think they do a better job at recognizing it and then trying to figure out solutions for it. Whereas men don't. Men just kind of like, you know, they just run themselves into the wall, you know. So that's my messaging a lot of times is start paying attention to these markers, because, you know, if you don't you can pay attention to them, you know, like your body's telling you what's going on. So if you're like, you know, if you're getting stressed out, you're working really hard, and you're older, and you haven't been exercising, you're drinking, you're not getting good sleep, you're dehydrated, you're probably hyperventilating, you have all these things going on, you most likely are at risk of a lot of things, negative things to your health, you know, and your body's telling you these things. And instead of sweeping them under the rug, you should pay attention to them, because, if you're not feeling good and you're not feeling energetic and you're not feeling great and you're feeling tired and burned out, but you're still kind of working yourself to the bone, it's there's a signal your body's telling you you're neglecting it. It's going to tell you again, and you're neglecting it, and it's going to tell you again, and then eventually a doctor is going to diagnose you as having a medical condition, and then by that time you're probably going to go, whoa, what was I doing? What was I thinking? Why would I want to? I don't want to die. I don't want to. All of a sudden I got to take statins. All of a sudden I got to take this heart medicine and this blood pressure medicine and this and that and everything else. And yet, so I think that there's a tendency to just fall back on the medical system as a way to mitigate these issues that could have been fixed a long time ago if they would just change their lifestyles, into more of a healthier version of themselves, And so I think that's really, that's what's going on.
So when you I'm just curious if you were to look at kind of a pattern of the kind of client that comes to you at the time that they come, are most of them in a place of, oh shit, I need to make a change. Their confidence is affected. Their body has changed. Something has caused, the switch has flipped to, I've got an ailment and I need to take care of it, and I'm now scared. Has it come to that with many of your female clients, for instance?
Yeah, more of the men that I predominantly work with have death sentences that are handed down to them from their doctors if they do not change things. So there's like they're not given a pass. They're like, the doctor has said, you continue down this road and things are going to get ugly, and so the 100 pounds overweight, diabetes, pre-diabetes, or severe diabetes, and heart problems, all these type of things. So yeah, it's usually that's what I'm getting the some of these men that reach out and seeing if we can help them, and then there's and then if you compare that with the women, for instance, they're going to come to us a lot sooner than that, and so, they're going to come to us before they get those diagnoses. They're going to be like, hey, I'm not feeling good. I've been trying to lose weight on my own. It's not working out. And, and so it's much different. The men that I work with, would be like, hey, the doctor said I've got like maybe a couple of years to live if I keep continuing living like this. So I got to make changes, I guess, it's like,
so
yeah.
It's not even a full commitment, kind of a passive statement.
Yeah.
Geez, I guess if I have to, but it's
not. Right.
Like, let's go win this game. It's more like,
yeah,
you have to take
it finally caught up to me. It finally caught up to me. Jeez, it's like, I didn't think it would, but I'm so shocked. it's like, really? You're shocked? I mean, geez. It's you're 100 pounds overweight. What are you shocked about? And so yeah, it is interesting. This I just think that I don't know what it is that causes it, but it's almost like there's this acceptance, like you were saying, that when you reach around 50, you can take your foot off the gas, and just sort of like cruise into old age and just really enjoy yourself, like you're entitled to it or something,
Yeah.
And in reality, it's like, no, that's not really what goes on. What really goes on here is that you have to recognize that you had a buffer of youth that was absorbing a lot of the abuse you were doing to your body, and that buffer of youth has actually dissipated and it doesn't exist any longer. And so now it's like the abuse that you've been doing to your body is catching up to you, and it's going to eventually kill you. So you have to try to reverse things, and what's really amazing, and people really don't give it much credit, is just how incredibly resilient the body really is when you can get it healthy. Like I had a guy that was, he was close to 100 pounds overweight. His blood sugar was well into closer to 300s. And he was taking these massive amounts of insulin. and just really, really like at death's door, basically. Nothing was going the right way. He was having heart problems, all kinds of things going on. And we just put him on a really good diet, had him work on some, meditation, breathing, relaxation exercises, getting him to just sort of just really kind of get into just healthy, like a really healthy lifestyle and outlook on things. And he's 100 pounds down. He's off of his insulin. He's doing amazing. His doctor is shocked. And it's like, yeah, because, what people don't realize, and I read medical studies. I'm not really good at them because they're very complicated, but I do try to read as much as I can about them and try to understand them. I'm not a medical guy, but I'm a coach, and I love educating myself, and I'll go through, I'll listen to Huberman Labs, and I'll listen to all kinds of doctors talk about things. I'll read neuroscience books and things like that. And one thing just keeps glaringly obvious to me. I'm a common sense type of guy. I mean, my coaching is all based on common sense. So I just look at things, I just say, well, look, everything points to stress. Okay. Everything points to stress. And so what do we need to do? We need to reduce stress. And how do we reduce stress, right? And so, because it's amazing, once you reduce stress, and I'm not talking about, there's good stress, right? There's workout stress, there's business stress. There's good stress, but but like I said, we overestimate our ability to handle stress. So if we're already dehydrated, like I was saying, don't have very much sleep, even the good stress can be bad stress to us, right? So we have to look at that and say, how do we reduce stress? Well, it's simple. Sleep more. Get all your hydration in. Get amazing nutrition in your body. It's the best medicine in the world. Exercise regularly. If you want to think about what the number one indicator of longevity is, it's really exercise. So, getting strong, working on your cardiovascular endurance, and, those two worlds collide. So you want to be strong, and you also want to have good cardiovascular endurance. And so, those lead to a longer life. It's absolutely, undeniably the truth. And so, exercise. And then the other piece, which I think is really, really misunderstood, and people don't understand the negative effects of it that well. And because I have a martial arts background, I know the positive effects of doing deep diaphragmatic breathing throughout the day, to relax your nervous system, relax that fight or flight response mode that's being triggered in your brain, and get yourself into a real settled place. I think that people really, really marginalize the benefits of really deep diaphragmatic breathing. It's a main part of your core function. It's good for your postural muscles. It's good for everything, And so, but people don't put enough effort into diaphragmatic breathing. And then, of course, the what ties it all together is mindfulness. Like they just allow themselves to get, triggered from like 24/7 news cycles and social media and all kinds of electronic stress, things like that. And sitting for long periods of time, which is like the worst thing you can ever do to your body, is to sit for long periods of time,
Oh, that's a trucker.
That's right. And so
that's the thing. There's lifestyles that people have.
That's right.
Based upon, film industry. The film industry, people are working 70, 80, 100 hours a week. Lots of men are working all these hours.
Yeah.
They're not getting to eat well. I'm just taking this as an example.
Sure. Absolutely.
There's a lot of employment that people don't have access to, have the freedom of time and balance. And getting to the point of what you're talking about, the number one healing thing, actually, not countering what you're saying, but going back to your breathing, is sleep.
That's right.
Sleep is the number one healer to all things medically,
Absolutely.
physically,
Absolutely.
mind, body, spirit. And most
100%.
people lack recovery from the actual resting period that they need. Yes, of course, we both know that nutrition and exercise and mind, body, spirit, all that is a balance.
Right.
But if you can't get those things, one of the most important things you have to do, I mean, coming out of surgeries, God forbid, is not the medicine, like the actual like pills and, well, yes, of course, that's also important, but it's the sleep so your body can recover and heal.
That's right.
Even after working out, it's recovery, right? It's proper
100%.
nutrition recovery. And it's so underrated and so underestimated. And it goes back to a cultural belief that sleep, who does that?
I'll sleep when I die.
Listen, my ironically, though, this will be, aired in a bit. I know that my husband could be working until 4 a.m. this morning and may have to be at another job at 6 or 7 or 8 a.m. And we'll get no turnaround time on 2 different jobs, and has been working days and days on end. Now, granted, on one hand, people would say, stop complaining, he's lucky to be employed. Yes, we're conscious of that. And at the same time, needs to do the sleeping for the sake of just being able to think clearly and do, be safe.
That's right.
And as a man who is also in his, middle stage of life, though strong and healthy, just, I'm using him as an example of many men I know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And don't have necessarily, quote unquote, I don't want to say they're powerless over the hours they work, but because we're working for other people versus in some cases being entrepreneurial and setting your own hours, which most of the world lives that way.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you're 100%. And so, I think that what impacts sleep is stress. And so if you want better sleep, you have to work on those stressors that are in all of those other areas, And so, and like you had said, there's really 2 main things I think that's really kind of happening here. It's our fast-paced culture demanding these influences, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the influences on us, right? And then it's our own belief systems that come from that. And so you have to kind of think to yourself, how do I get out of this? And to me, it's like breaking out of the matrix. You have to figure it out, because it's going to just be a matter of time before it ruins your life. And so how do I get a good amount of sleep? Like, if sleep is as important as you're saying it, how do I get it? And well, it really it's if you have poor nutrition, it's hard to sleep well. If you're not exercising really well, it's hard to sleep well. If you're not getting good hydration, you're dehydrated, same thing. If you're hyperventilating instead of deep breathing, it's hard. It's going to keep triggering anxiety and thoughts and weird stuff. And if you're not meditating and putting your, and journaling at night and writing out your thoughts, you could be sitting there just stewing about stuff that's going on, that's going to happen in the next day, And so I really think that there is, like you said, the issue is cultural, the demands that our culture demands of us, our environment. And how do we with that manage a stress management system for ourselves, when we're being worked so hard, when we're doing these things. And I just say you got to figure it out, because your life depends on it. so
right.
you
have to make a decision to choose another path. And it's
right.
interesting. So, I mean, not to be morbid, but unfortunately, as we age, there's so many more women that exist versus men, longevity wise. I don't know what the average age is, and I don't know why that is, other than coming back to this conversation. But having observed, a handful of years back, as I was dealing with our mom, observing men and women who were living under one roof in an assisted living, and how these very healthy, vibrant people all ended up, you know, in this place, all well-to-do, all really successful.
Yep.
Some of it for the sake of just independent living, some of it for the sake because things happen. And again, no guarantees, you know, because it's not just cultural environment, it's genetics.
Yep.
Some people just in their lineage have more heart attacks, more strokes, or diabetes, or whatever. And yes, some can avoid it and some can't. I mean, in my own history, my own family lineage, you know, one side has passed away from heart attacks. The other side has, you know, passed away from strokes. And how does one avoid all that? And I have a brother and then myself and a sister. And it's how do we avoid that? How do we consciously avoid those things, generationally speaking, to the best of our ability?
Well, you know, men and women, well, women live a little bit longer than men. I think the age now is like 81 for women, 77 for men. It might have dropped down because of COVID for a little bit, but it'll go back
Right.
up. But but I think that you know, if you were to go back 100 years ago, you know, men weren't living that long. Like, you know, women were living in their 60s, but men were dying in their late 50s. And so, you know, it's sort of like a new phenomenon for us to be living as long as we're living. And so, you know, there's always outliers, right? There's always those people that can, you know, smoke 2 packs of cigarettes, drink a bottle of booze, and live to be 100, right? But
Right.
you know, but for the most part, I mean, those are like 0.00001% of the population. The main thing that's driving people, you know, right now, I believe, is a real disconnect with understanding that they have actually a lot of control over their gene expression. You know, they don't necessarily have to just succumb to whatever the genes that they were given are going to tell them what's going to happen to them, because, you know, genes need a trigger, you know, like, and so you're triggering genes every time that you act, every time your body moves in space, you're triggering gene expression. So
Right.
if you go and you start exercising, guess what? Your genes are going to express genes that are going to support that level of health in your life. If you're not doing that and you're drinking booze and you're sitting in a couch and all that, then those genes are going to express that. Your genes express the behaviors that you exhibit in life. So if you want to change if you want to change your life, then you need to move into a different paradigm. You need to create a different culture for yourself. I always say it's sort of like a subculture, you know?
Yeah.
And so you got to say, you know what, this isn't right. This isn't logical. This can't be true. I need to change the way that I do things, and so that I can be at a better place down the road. Because I think, and we can all probably agree that the worst nightmare you can possibly think of would be to get into our 70s and 80s and 90s and be completely decrepit and miserable and live 5 to 10 years with minimal existence. You know, it's like, I just can't even imagine that happening. And so to me, I think if you want to, like, you know, still have the cognitive abilities, if you still want to have the physical abilities, and like you had said, nothing is guaranteed, obviously, right? But you have a much better chance at getting that to that level if you are being consciously aware now and making those changes now, because every day counts when you get to our age. It just does. You know, it's like, it's not something you can just put off. Oh, you know, I'll do that over the new year. No, it's like, you can't do that. Like, you have to think about what you can do today, because it's already too late a lot of ways for a lot of people. You know, if you wait until you're in your 60s and 70s, you know, to start working on your health, and you've been abusing your body all the way till then, it's really tough to bounce back from that. I'm sure you can. I mean, to some degree, it's better than nothing, but that
Right.
window is closing. And so I mean, my message to anyone that is like in their 40s, that's why I always have our program for people over 40, is because I would want you by 40 to start really thinking about what it's going to be like in your old age. I want you to start visualizing what your last 10 years are going to look like. And what do you want that to be like? Do you want it to be miserable, or do you want it to be, fulfilling, and living out a really good life? You only got this one life, so why not give it all you have and enjoy as much of it as you possibly can while you're here,
So interesting too, because you said it earlier, life is a miracle. It's an absolute miracle that any of us are conceived and come out healthy and whole.
That's
and
right.
then continue to be of that mirrored image of the ability to have a full brain and all of our capacities, and be able to have our eyes, ears, mouth, and be able to speak and think and function as an individual human being. It is truly just that. I think people take for granted that even a pregnancy even occurs. So, and that, I can just get pregnant and have a baby. No, that's actually not true. I wish it were, but that's a learned thing too, and a consciousness. And the fact that we have this miracle, this, these walking quote unquote temples, so to speak, that we then do abuse one way or another, either through the environments we're raised in or the environments that we take upon ourselves as we get older. I do think it starts with the mindset, and the brain, the mind, is our most powerful organ of all. And it makes our decisions with us in alignment or out of alignment of how we're going to choose to go forth in this path. Ironically, as you know, a year ago, when we were sitting here and I was talking to you and Rachel, your partner, I was sitting across from you on the Zoom call, 40 pounds heavier. And, talking as if I knew what was going on, because I'd been an athlete and pre-med and all the things, and certainly had the intellectual properties, but wasn't actually living proof of those intellectual properties. And it wasn't until my hand was forced through a slight meniscus tear that thankfully hadn't stopped me from moving, but I knew if I kept going down that path, that was going to be detrimental not only to my health, but my wealth. And I had to take action, and I had to be proactive. And though it initially started through physical therapy, then the light bulb went off and was like, hey, Felicia, you got to lose weight. It wasn't a message from anybody else. I mean, granted, I'm sure the ones who love me were like, have you looked in the mirror lately? But, I had no excuses. I realized that I had endured a lot of my own stuff through carrying and shouldering a lot of things, through thyroid cancer, through taking care of my mom's going through 5 strokes, through life experiences, the pandemic, none of which gives any validity. But it just was what collected on my plate that showed up on my body. And even though I've never been the tiny woman up to this point where I'm gearing myself towards tinier and healthier, I'm grateful that light bulb went off. And I'm grateful that I made that decision. And I'm grateful I started surrounding myself with, first off, having people like yourselves in my life who, I could hear your voices in my head, even though you guys didn't know it. I could hear your voice in my head, and I'd laugh at myself and just go, wow, really? I mean, who do you think you were? But the beautiful thing is now I turn around, and it's something you said earlier. When people make these transformations, they end up becoming leaders of inspiration.
That's right.
And that is what's happening now for me. People are turning around and looking at me, which was not my goal, by the way, and turning around as if they don't recognize me. People have known me for years. And this isn't my ego. And Rachel and I talk about this because, as you know, now Rachel, Rachel trains me.
Yeah.
And I didn't consciously do this. I did this to heal my knee.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do this to outwardly inspire others. But what I've come to realize at this stage of my life currently is that many people whom I've worked with for years or known for years, and I certainly can't speak for them, but I think that they're looking at me going, holy shit, if Felicia can do it.
Yeah.
Because I think to them, I was the big girl.
Yeah.
They weren't. They were the healthy ones comparatively. And let me just say for the record, even though I carried weight, I still think that there were many healthier aspects of me than, it's not a comparison, but I think it was just a matter of like, okay, Felicia, you know which flip you got, which switch you got to flip to take action.
Right.
But it was also not seeing the results of that until finally I started to see the results of that. And now it's like the train has left the station, as Rachel and I talk about. The train has left the station.
That's right.
And I'm not going back.
That's
I'm
right.
going this direction.
That's
and
right.
getting like, and I said this at 18, I was just going to become a fine wine as I got older. I didn't, and I'm hoping that that's the stage I'm in. And I'm hoping that my example, though we're not talking about men, but men have also asked me, what are you doing? Because they want to know, because I know that they too want to be doing, because their lifestyles are crazy. I work with directors that travel the world and producers that travel the world, not just men who are, schlepping a camera and cables. No, men that want to feel and look good. They want their intimacy levels to be good. They don't want their stomach to be in their way. They want their waistline to be trimmer. They want to, be able to feel confident in their meetings, all of the above.
That's right.
But it does take a conscious decision.
Yeah. Well, by the way, fantastic. Congratulations. You've done amazing. I love it. So, the way that I look at it is that you have to have that epiphany, right? You have to have that aha moment, and you had that, right? And so I always talk about that. Like, you have to have that, like, aha, oh man, you know what? Geez, I really do think I want to do this, and you got to have this overwhelming curiosity of what would I be like if I was to be the healthiest version of myself. I just wonder what would happen. You got to have that, because that's what's going to drive you, is that curiosity. You got to say to yourself, God, in 6 months, if I put a lot of work into this, I bet I'm going to look amazing. I just want to see what that looks like, and then you get there, and then that 6 months turns into like, okay, this isn't good enough, but I'm so proud of what I've done. And I've done so well for myself. I can't ever go backwards now. Let me see what else I can do. I'll go another 6 months. Man, what would I be like if I did this for 2 years? Oh my God, And so you get that like curiosity thing going in your head, and then you're inspired by yourself, and then you don't recognize that you're inspiring other people. And that's one of the things that's really beautiful about getting really healthy, is that you don't just get healthy for yourself, but you're influencing other people around you also to get healthy, because you're a shining light. You're like shining light on this darkness, and people are going, wow, how did she do that? And so they get curious. Oh, can I do that too? I wonder what what it's involved in doing that, And so, and you said, one thing about being, a miracle. It's like, yeah, I read in a scientific journal that the odds of us being alive is 400 quadrillion to 1. okay, that you're even alive, okay? And then if you were to look at us through the, the atomic level, we are 99.9999% some energetic wave. I can't understand what those waves are, but it's basically it's space, and that if you took the matter within that all the matter that's in those atoms, and you put them together, we're really the size of a sugar cube, and so we're basically invisible, right?
Blip. It's a blip.
Yeah, and so you kind of just go, whoa, that's amazing. And then you say, well, if you took all the DNA in your body and you unraveled it, it would go to the sun, not just one time, it would go to the sun 300 times back and forth. I mean, that's going around the world 25 million times, like your DNA, just you,
Yeah.
And so it's really profound when you think about how much of a miracle we truly are. And so if you can look at your body as this innocent being, that's a space being, and we're on this rock and we're in the universe, and you were to say to yourself, wow, this space being I'm in is purely innocent. What's corrupting it is this ego. This ego is corrupting this innocent being, and so then you can start saying to yourself, why is that? Why would I want to harm this innocent being? And because there's so much we don't know, right? We don't know about any of these things, that we talked about. Like, we don't understand the universe. We don't even know how we got here, what we're doing here, or any of these things. And so there's a lot of unknown. And whether you believe in God, or you believe in the unknown, or whether it's spiritualness or it's consciousness, whatever label you want to throw on that unknown world, we are something magical. We're some miracle that's happening. And so in your body is doing everything it can to keep you alive so you can experience as much as you can. And so if your body is trying to do that, and you're not, and you're abusing it, well, you're just adding more conditions onto what your body's already trying to handle just to keep you alive. Now all of a sudden you're doing other things to your body, you're abusing your body, and now your body's got to handle that too. It's like, it just doesn't seem fair. And so I always say, really what health and fitness really is, and what the mind, body, spirit connection is, it's being in harmony with your body's fight to keep you alive. It's will to live. It's fight to survive. It's being in alignment with that. It's being in harmony with that. It's not being out of sync with that. It's not like saying, oh, hey, body, my innocent body that's trying to keep me alive. Hey, handle this. And all these other type of things that we do to it, And I just think that's a travesty. And so if there's some way people can wake up and realize that they're these magical miracle space beings, and that they're not this role that they're playing in society, which I call the matrix, then they can maybe snap out of it and go, okay, you know what? I really need to kind of, I'm going to be here one time on this planet. Let me do the best I can. And let me get in harmony with this energy I have inside of me. It's doing so much to try to bring this wonderful life experience to me. Let me do whatever I can to get in harmony with that. And let me see what happens.
I'm so happy you were able to join us for part 1, and next week's part 2 will drop next Monday as Jake and I continue our conversation about just really the randomness of making choices and why these choices are so powerful in our life. Because in turn of wanting to create wellness and health and wealth, it takes a commitment, it takes support, it takes a mindset, it takes a lifestyle. And that can be carved out and created at any time with anyone and whomever you are. So join us next week. I look forward to you being a part of this community. Join, subscribe, share the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast on all your listening platforms. Choose your favorite and be a part of what is something that we say is our artist journey of transformation and possibilities, and where we talk about everything from soup to nuts, or what I like to say, from cannolis to egg in the holes, and don't forget the s'mores. We're here because the spirit is young, the soul is wise, and the life stories are vast, and we're here to share all of them. Bye for now.
What drives me and what gets me up in the morning is helping people have a better life and changing their lives for the better, and seeing how that impacts the world in a positive way. And so my goal is to help as many people as I can, millions of people, everyone. I want to help the whole world. I want to try to leave a legacy where it was like, I was here and I helped as many people as I can become healthy, because I know that if I can make people healthy and they become a better version of themselves, they are going to change the world collectively. And that's what I would want to do.
Welcome to the Camp Fifi Uncensored podcast, my 61st episode with my guest, Jake Platt. Our part 2 conversation about what our environments are doing to influence us and the mindset that it takes to change our lives, and the power we have to do just that, to live the healthiest lives that we are capable of. I am just really excited for everybody to hear this part 2. It's jam-packed, full of really passionate conversations between the two of us. And Jake is just so committed to all of his clients and what he's setting forth to do that it's really worth a listen and really worth being inspired by. So I look forward to you sitting down and taking a listen to part 2 with my guest, Jake Platt. Here we go.
I don't know how random we all are created. I mean, let's face it, it's pretty random, right?
It really is, yeah.
And what matters, meaning matter and what matters, so to speak. And that's deep philosophical belief systems of like that conversation could go on. And then you think about how we environmentally are exposed to things, and we environmentally do things onto ourselves, and then how we as a whole world do onto others, and are so abusive, sadly, to one another. And I'm not going to get into the politics and all the things, but it's quite interesting when you take it back to purity and conception and evolution and miracle, and you think about child, or our children, and you think about how you would protect your child from any harm, to remain safe, to be able to grow up and to become the adult that's a functional human being. And then you think about all these elements that come into play, and then how you have to dissect and pull back that curtain and like relearn all of those things, because we're not consciously all the time being taught that, or we're fighting that uphill battle. because of all the other things that come into play, you know, sadly, trauma, sadly, exposure to people who aren't healthy of mind, body, and spirit, the levels of abuse, what have you. And I know this is kind of going off, but it all collects into who you show up being. And then all of a sudden there you are. And now you're dealing with the realities of this, whether it's reality, truth, or illusion, or what we, you know, what
Sure.
this blip of this existence is. And it's fascinating who says, whoa, hold on to the reins, and I need to like reprogram this moment in time, or those who go, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that, especially, it's interesting. It's interesting to see people getting into 40s, 50s, 60s, and how many people just, I think this is as good as it's going to get.
Yeah, there's a interesting evolution that occurs when you have abundance, you know, and you know, there's a split that occurs at some point in abundance. It can split into two different directions. It can either lead you into what I call more of like a spiritual realm, right, where you have faith, courage,
Gratitude,
you know, gratitude, and all these other things, right?
mm-hmm.
Or it could lead you into complacency.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and the problem with complacency is that it's not far away from apathy, and
Right.
and you know, it's really close to apathy, and you know, and then what's on the other side of apathy is depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then on the other side of depression is just like bondage. You know, it's like you are just, you know, you're just closed off, right?
You're a prisoner of yourself.
That's right. You become a prisoner to yourself. And so really it's like, you know, when you know, if you are, and I see this a lot of times with very successful people that have all the money in the world, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they just let their health just go, you know,
Yeah.
because it's like, you know, it's sort of like, well, I kind of earned this, and, you know, and I've got all these other things that are way more important and stuff like
And
that.
I can buy my way through it all.
That's right. Yeah. And so, you know, they just think that they can just drop money to fix everything. And like, you know, health is wealth, you know, and so you've got to look at it that way. And I think that when people can make that distinction and see for themselves. I used to have a funny little saying, you know, in my gym when I had my gym and we had people coming into our gym, is like, they really don't know fitness until they've been in my gym for a while, because, you know, we were a CrossFit gym, so we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and we were developing some of the fittest people in the world. And so people that were coming to us would really, like, you know, they were doing like endurance running, or they were doing, you know, some other sport and stuff, and they would just get crushed in these workouts. It's because they just never knew what true fitness would be like, right? And so it's sort of like the same thing with a lot of people, is they just haven't felt what true health is like, what it's like to be really, really healthy, and how much that can really change their life for the better. You know, it's funny, because I'll have somebody who will reach out to me and they will say, how much does it cost, right? Like, that's the, you know, how much does it cost? It's like always the first thing that people pop up, you know, and I'll be like, well, you know, you're, you know, a bit overweight, and, you know, we need to kind of put you on a diet and exercise program, you know, basic stuff, right? You know, and it's like, yeah, I could probably do it for a couple $100, you know. Oh yeah, I just don't have that right now. And it's just like, okay. It's like, you know, all right.
Right.
You know, it's just like, because there is there's
a disconnect.
Yeah, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect in seeing the value of what this health can actually bring you. You know, it'll make you more money than you've ever made in your life. You know, it's like when you are really, really healthy, you think you're productive now, you think that your mindset is good now, just wait to see what happens when you are really, truly happy and healthy and fulfilled and energized and just pumped about life. I mean, everything goes through the roof, you know? And so I just think that that's what people are missing. They're just missing that disconnect because they don't have a frame of reference. You know, they're sitting back in their place, they have no frame of reference, and they're trying to make a decision when they're in a place of misery and suffering and depression. And they, you know, and so they're trying to make a good decision about their life inside of that suppressed place. And that is a hard place to make a good decision about your health in, you know? And so it's a catch-22, you know? And so you know, it's hard to get people to have that aha moment when they're depressed and they're just, and they're apathetic and they're just like, oh, I'm just kind of beat up, I'm burned out, I'm anxious, and I'm, you know, it's like those emotions keep you from being able to make a good decision about
100%. And look at you and I have both, because you've expressed that you carried some weight at a certain point, right?
Yep.
Do you know what it's like not to be at the most fit place? So you have that empathy, you have that understanding. You're not just somebody who came carved out like a David. You created that for yourself. Right. And for myself, you know, I know that I'm now in what I refer to only my own terminology, my phase 2, my next, like now I'm going to the next 20, possibly 30 pounds off my body. And, you know, my ultimate goal. And that goal is something that, you know, I have a number goal, and, you know, to even envision what that looks like. I mean, it's really interesting because to some, they would love me to just stop right now, like this, because it's whatever. And the difference in my mindset today versus any other time, and Rachel and I think have talked about this, any other time I would have allowed for that to influence me, and I would have allowed for any attention to have me actually go in the opposite direction because I couldn't handle it. And it's not about the attention, like the physical, oh my God, what are you doing and all. No, I just think it was a form of, I feel too vulnerable and now I have to go back into protection mode. Whereas today, the reason for this evolution and transformation and not that it ever was before, by the way, but today I'm in a different mindset. My whys, my goals, my clarity is an art of the sculpture in a different mind, just a mind, body, spirit space. Mm-hmm. And so I know that comments and whatever is not going to influence me, and it's not going to knock me off my block, and I'm not going to turn around and go in the other direction. That doesn't mean I'm going to do things perfectly, by the way. I mean, you know, I, as Rachel and I discussed, there's been moments I've like come home super tired and I'm just, you know, going into old bad habits of reaching for things that might be lying around, and, you know, and I feel it the next day. The good news is I get to see myself turn that back around. It's nothing crazy, but it is what it is. And that's being human. And I'd rather have that very transparent conversation versus, oh no, I just eat, you know, 3 and 4 ounces of, you know, lean meat every 2 to 3 hours, and, you know, a lean vegetable, a clean vegetable, and balance that. And I'm so good 24/7. No, I'm not. But you didn't lose the 40 pounds by eating Halloween candy. By the way, I just didn't even bring that into the house this year at all. That wasn't even a possibility. That wasn't happening.
And I think a lot of it is you have cultivated a new frame of reference, right? And so you're now at a different place, and it's because you have, you know, expressed yourself in in a really healthy way. Your body has developed this health over time, and you are just in a different place. And so it's amazing to me that this is available for anyone and everyone. And,
Yeah.
and it's not that hard to do. Like the hardest part is the hardest part is the lying that you tell yourself about yourself. That's the hardest part. Like that's what happens to people. It's the story that they tell themselves about themselves that they believe in, and it's complete hogwash. It's just it's not true. You
Well,
know?
Jake, I really feel like that's who I was sitting in front of you a year ago. I feel like there was an aspect of that. And what I'm so grateful for is and again, this is not about me, it's the example of exactly to the point of what you're talking about, is you don't have to believe those stories. You don't have to live into those stories. You can rewrite your story.
Right.
And you can rewrite your story into something better, different, and more fulfilling.
Yep.
For the sake of your health and your wealth and your spirit, your confidence, your inspiration, your transformation, what's possible, that it's all possible if you want it. You know, I mean, at this point, I feel like I've won millions of dollars, frankly. I really do.
Wow.
I mean, even just living into my brand, my athleisure brand, I can wear it in a way that I couldn't confidently wear it and show it before, that I'm proud to. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not grateful that I don't have an inclusive line to show and have and share with women of all sizes. Absolutely. I'm a big believer in that. But I also know that who I show up being today in my body, thanks to many people who along the lines inspired me to get back on track and to take care of number one, for the sake of being able to take care of all those who I take care of, really is a gift. It's a gift that I'm forever so thankful for. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful to you and Rachel for being a part of that community.
Well, we're honored. I mean, my biggest mission is to pay this forward. You know, to me, that's what motivates me. You know, it's what I'm out there trying to do. If I can, you know, if I could pay my good fortune forward to someone else, and then they pay that good fortune over to someone else, we're going to make the world a better place. We're going to make it a healthier place. We're just going to make it a way better place. And I think that it really starts with opening your mind, being curious, and really trying to figure out how you can, like you said, change the story in your head from how you know, like I'll get this all the time from people. It's like, well, that's just the way I do things. I do think, you know, I do this because of this. And it's like, no, you don't. You're just telling yourself that. All these things are just things you tell yourself about yourself, and they're not true. You can change your life in a split second. You can completely do a 180. I can walk right off this set right now and just walk outside and just start going for a walk. I mean, I can change my behavior anytime. I have full control over that. And so do you. So does everyone. And you got to get out of your head that you're being driven by this story that's telling you how you are, because that's not who you are. That's not true, you know. And so, but I think that is really the first thing that needs to happen is people just need to recognize that that this is available to them. They have an aha moment, and then from there, they really need to think about what they can do and how they can change for the better, and get excited about it, because it's extremely exciting when you think about it. But you know, when you're in it and you're in the doldrums and you're thinking, oh God, you know, how am I going to do this? No, it's not going to be like that. Just do little baby steps every day, just little baby steps. Keep moving towards that. And they just pile upon themselves over time. And you just got to be patient with yourself. You got to be relaxed, and you got to be giving yourself self-love, a lot of encouragement, a lot, we can't be perfect, but we could be good. We could be 80 to 90% good. We don't have to be 100%. We're going to have the Halloween cake. I mean, come on, we're going to have the birthday cake at the birthday party. We're going to have the glass of champagne at the wedding. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous to think that it's got to be so strict that you're not going to be able to enjoy some elements of life, But you're drinking every single night, having fast food every day, not getting good sleep. It's like, you know what? Let's cut out the sugar. Let's cut out the fast food. Let's cut out the booze for a little while. You know what I mean? Let's just start with that first. Let's get that going, and then let's, and then we'll start adding more layers and layers and layers as you keep going and keep getting better, And so there's this idea that it's an all or nothing type of thing. And I think that's where people kind of get themselves, really hung up. It's like looking at Mount Everest and saying, God, how am I supposed to climb to Mount Everest? I can't even walk 10 feet down the road, because that's what they're thinking it's going to be like. And it's like, no, we're just get a little bit better every day, a little bit better every day.
It's ironic that you said that, because last March, when I did tear my meniscus, the first thing that came to my mind was, holy shit, if I keep going in this direction, I'm not going to be able to travel the world and climb ruins and do all the things that I want to do and have the freedom of my body to make choices if I keep living this way. And this is unacceptable. This is just absolutely not okay. And having torn my other meniscus in the early 2000s and having had surgery on it, and knowing, having been athletic and being really in great shape at the time, and it took me a year to recover from that surgery. I mean, I couldn't get on my knees. I couldn't cross my legs, things that I was really used to doing. And so simple, but so quickly taken into like, oh shit mode, that I wasn't going to repeat that, to the point where I refused to go see the orthopedic surgeon. I refused. I said, no, I know what it's like to be in the water, and I'm getting my ass in the water, and I'm getting a therapist, and we're going to do this. And I'm going to have somebody keep me accountable until I can't go there anymore. And then that's when, as Rachel and I were doing a podcast, I was like, Jesus God, I need you now. Like, here's the baton, pass it on, take me to where I need to be with the things that I know and love, which thankfully is Pilates and resistance training, because I know that to the core, that is, how my body responds. Unless you're going to put me in a boxing ring or what have you. And then that's a whole nother form. But I just knew that it has to be gentle, small moments of build. And to your point, it isn't about like, hey, how do I get out and climb Mount Everest today? Because nobody's going to do that unless you've been training forever and a day. I mean, it is the baby steps. And it is really interesting how in 6 months, as you spoke on, how you get to see a shift once you make that decision, because that is exactly been my path. And it is exciting to think about what's going to happen in the next 6 months. And it's funny, I didn't even get to tell Rachel this, but after, I think it was like our second to last workout, I saw this news piece of a woman who had been 80 pounds overweight. Never had she ever thought she would ever lose weight in her life. And next thing she knows, she not only made that decision to lose the weight, turns around, drops the weight. She's actually like a person who competes in barbecues. And so she was somebody who continued to compete in barbecuing, and became like this inspiration, because not only did she lose weight, and then starts competing because of how her body transformed and that in and of itself made me go into a whole nother light bulb moment. Not that I was going to compete, but like, hey, how else the more one evolves this sculpture? And ironically, being somebody who works, as we've discussed, works with lots of live news, either as an artist or in my work as a makeup artist, I see, you know, and then ironically, also coming from pre-med, and I've discussed this with people, I say, and I've discussed this with Rachel as well, I would not have discussed this last November when we first talked, ironically. But as I have inspired people, and they're like, oh my God, well, how much more weight are you? Haven't you lost the weight? And I'm like, no, because here's the deal. Let me tell you a little something about the human body when it comes to anatomy. And this is not like, oh, Felicia's got her MD, PhD, but this is my exposure to working on dead bodies, cadavers. When you get to see what fat looks like in organs and how it suffocates everything, and you don't have to be vastly overweight, by the way.
That's right.
So what I remember seeing in front of this group of women who were like, oh my God, because I think at that point I had dropped like 25, 30 pounds. And they're like, well, how much more weight do you plan on losing? And I was like, well, you know, my goal is I started in the 190s. I was nearly 200 pounds. I need to at least get down to 130s. I've never not been in an overweight or an obese categories, which, you know, can be depressing in and of itself. But I literally said, if I can still grab my stomach externally, I can only imagine internally what that is still engulfing my organs. And the irony too, you talk about breathing. My breathing alone, going to my allergist because I'm asthmatic, my breathing alone, the improvement that has occurred when I went to do my blow test, my doctor was like, do you understand this is because of the weight loss you've gone through? Because there's not the fat in the way. And how impressive this is that you've never had a bet. Like it was a 97 percentile versus I couldn't make it like over the 50 mark, I think, at a certain point. And it wasn't like I didn't walk or hike or whatever, but it was just like that intensive, like, you know, kind of thing that you have to do. And that was all because that is getting out of the way.
Yeah.
And I think if people really saw what that looks like every time I think of that yellow globular fat, and I always said I should have been thin by the time I was 18 when I was working on cadavers. But when I think of yellow globular fat, and then I think of food, I think of anything that is yellow outside of like a zucchini is going to turn into sugar and fat.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've done 2 cadaver dissections in my life, so I can completely understand. The issue, I think, as far as, you know, when people are thinking about losing weight, you know, they immediately go to the diet and exercise as the solution. Mm-hmm. You know, it's got to be diet, got to be exercise, and I'm like, no, it's actually got to be mindset. You've got to work on your mindset, and I really think that if you're going to do that, you need to have a good coach who can call you out on your internal BS, you know, and help you keep a good mental outlook on what it is that you're trying to do. And so, you know, I think that to me is, you know, diet and exercise are just part of stress management. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like you got to think about when you get into your 50s, if the number one thing that's killing you is stress, then that's got to be what you have to focus your attention on and nothing else, because you know, it's like that's it. That's what it is to become old. To become old means that now you have to take on the responsibility of excessive stress. You know, and because that's what's going to hurt you in the long run. And so that's what the enemy is. The enemy is excessive stress. And so how do you combat that? You got to create a really strong healthy lifestyle that is managing stressors in your life. You know, and you know, I had a client of ours that lost close to 50 pounds. She was 185. I think she got down to like high 130s, you know, like she's trying to get down to 135, but I think she hovers around 138, which is, we're like, you're there, you're already there, right? But what she found was that she lost some of her friends. She lost some of the people that were close to her. And she couldn't understand why. And a lot of it was, I believe, just because she started making people look bad, you know, and they had this, you know, when she was overweight, they could relate to her because they were, you know, they were in that same circle. But as soon as they started losing weight, she said when she got down to like, when she lost her first 25 pounds, she started feeling like people were trying to shame her. Like a couple of people at work were kind of shaming her, and a couple of her friends. And then she got down, you know, 40 pounds, close to her goal weight, which is losing 50 pounds. And she just transformed. Like she just got really super hot, and she was just like, you know, and her husband did the same thing. He lost 50 pounds too. And so we were trying to get the two of them to lose 100 pounds because we were like putting them on a contest. Who's going to lose the 50 pounds first? And so they're still going at it. But, you know, it took them about a good 9 months to kind of get that weight off. But her biggest problem, her biggest issue was the fallout from these people that she thought were her friends, who evidently just weren't really good friends after all, you know, like
Right.
you know, they just, you know, they couldn't relate to her losing all this weight and all this kind of stuff. And so it was kind of interesting how those type of things shift. But, you know, we are influenced by our environment tremendously. You know, like I was trying to say, you know, if you have someone that's overweight in your household, there's something like 4 times greater impact on you that you will end up becoming overweight. Like you have that level of influence going over you. You know, like it's like a 40% or something like that increase. You know, and then if you even have a neighbor who's overweight, it can impact you being overweight. And so we don't realize that it's the invisible hand that guides our behavior is our environment, you know. And so if you're around toxic people, guess what's going to happen? You're probably going to pick up some of their toxicity. If you're around people that are cussing, you're going to probably start cussing. If you're around people that are overweight, guess what? You may be picking up some of their stuff that they're doing. Subconsciously, you could be picking it up, not even being consciously aware that that's what's happening to you. And so, you know, and I always tell people, we are in an environment that is heavily influencing us all the time. And so you have got to create this subculture in your own life that can compete against it. And I always say it's the David and Goliath sort of story. You know, it's like our culture is the Goliath, your subculture is David. And so if you're trying to get healthy, and the mainstream culture is really unhealthy, you're going to be competing against that all the time. But right. there will come a day though where you will end up impacting everyone around you, because you will get to a place where you'll be around different people. You'll start to attract those type of people into your life, you know, and all of a sudden you're surrounded around those type of people, and you're going to be influencing a lot of people to make changes. And I just said, I go, you know, the thing about it is you should still continue trying to reach out to those people, because there may come a time when they're going to say to themselves, you know what, I want to do that too.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, and I definitely agree with that. And I definitely feel that what she is doing is actually bringing up their insecurities and mirroring, you know, making them look in the mirror. All of a sudden they have to look in the mirror and go, what's happening and what am I doing? If she's taking charge of her life, this makes people very self-conscious. I think that when you have the courage to change, that forces or falls away from those who don't. And it does take courage to change, uncomfortably so.
Unbelievably so. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be that person who does take those actions and then wins at doing that, or is that spirit and that source of inspiration. And you were talking about before, it's like as you are carving yourself into that living sculpture, as you are releasing that bat and becoming that flower within that you've always been, and not that you weren't before, but this is the brighter version of that human. Do you get more enlightened with the things that trigger you, or the things that you question, or the belief systems? It's not that you didn't always believe. It's a new belief. It's a belief of, like for her, the 138 versus 135. The 135 is my goal as well. Other people, like the cardiologist, start saying, but you could be 120, 125. And I'd be like, I go back to Rachel and go, oh my God, like 120, 125. What? I mean, how's that going to happen? And then I'd be like, I think I just want to get to my bat mitzvah weight, for God's sake, for one day. I'm like, live into it beyond one day, and be like, that's good. And it's, and I think it's like peeling back an onion. I think it's like taking another breath and going, I'm doing this and I'm owning this. And if that makes other people uncomfortable, that's not about me. That's about them.
That's right.
It has nothing to do with her. That has to do absolutely 100% with the other individuals. And to your point, that's not a friendship. And yes, maybe those people will come around, be it one, be it many. And that will be a very telling experience. And she may move on, or she may be so empathetic that she'll be very welcoming. And hopefully that will be her story. Yeah. For in that moment. I certainly know for all the things that I've been experiencing, like I said, every day, I am taken aback, because I don't know what her experience is, but it takes you a little bit of catching up to say, oh, this is who I am today versus that's who I was. Yeah. I'm no longer, literally, honestly, if it hadn't been for me being told to take photographs, I didn't realize how much of a shift I had physically made. I just didn't. I feel like Felicia. Obviously I feel lighter, but I feel like the same person. Yeah. I know I'm the same person. I didn't understand physically, and God knows I'm super conscious of I'm aware. It's not like I'm living under a rock, but it was the photographs that showed me the evolution of the transformation that really like threw me back. So yeah. If it threw me back, I get that how it might affect others, but I'm not looking for that. I'm not walking in a room going, who's going to react? Because I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about so many other things, but the impact is interesting. It really is interesting to experience that.
Yeah, there's almost like a social validation aspect to it. Like, you have to be you have to have some, you have to be in a place where you're accepted, right? And it is like, no, that's a story you're telling yourself about yourself. It's like the same story. Like, well, my friends like to drink, and I can't tell them that I'm not drinking right now because they won't invite me to their house. I'm like, no, that's so not true. Get on the phone with them. Tell them you're working on your health. You're trying to lose some weight. You're taking a little break from drinking, and see what they say. There's this tendency to want to justify not doing it and try to create this false narrative of like, well, I still need to get, all my friends drink, and I'm not gonna be that person who doesn't drink when I go to the party and stuff. I'm just like, you got to stop caring about what people think about you. Like, number one, and number two, it's like, it's like this. if drinking alcohol is, and there's not been one study actually that's come out recently that has supported drinking any alcohol if you're over 50, by the way. And so no amount of it is good for you. And so, but if you're if you're trying to take a break because you've been drinking too much and you're trying to give your liver a break, you're trying to lose weight, trying to get healthy, and you're getting these social influences from people that are telling you like, oh, you can get away with just having a couple of drinks. Come on, dude, let's go. We're gonna have, whatever it is, you got to recognize that person, they're not looking at things as deeply as you are. Like you're looking at like, how is my life being impacted negatively from this drinking? And how is my longevity being impacted by this? And is drink, if drinking is going to take away days, weeks, months, years even of my life, I mean, how valuable is a day of your life, to live an extra day of your life? How valuable is a week? How valuable is a month? How valuable would be a year? Or let's say even 5 years or 10 years. If you're drinking over 50, you're excessively drinking, you're literally cutting your life expectancy by almost 40%, So you have to think to yourself, wow, if I'm doing that to myself, how do I, when I'm talking drinking, I'm talking excessive drinking. I'm talking like alcoholism, borderline alcoholism, like more than a couple of drinks, I'm talking like, a couple of drinks every night or on the weekends, having 4 or 5 drinks, I'm sure there's an argument for people that are like drinking a glass of wine at dinner each night. I don't really think that's a big deal. You can metabolize a glass of wine, it's not a big deal. Do I think it's really good for you? Probably not, but it's a lot better than having 3 or 4 glasses of wine every single night, right? A bottle or 2 bottles. And but if you're looking at, the social pressure of people and what they're thinking about you when you're trying to get healthy, you just have to ask yourself this question: do they want me? Would they be in support of me living longer or dying earlier?
It's a great question.
Okay, because that's really boring. Like that's what it is. It's like it's nothing else. It's like if you're doing this because you want to live longer and you want to live healthier. And so if you do it, then you're going to live shorter and you're going to live unhealthier. It's like that's just common sense. So really you're basing your longevity on other people's opinions of you rather than what you really truly believe is the truth of the matter, and following your inner truth and being true to yourself. And I think that's really where people kind of, like that's the social pressure. Those are the cultural influences that are constantly raining down on us every single hour we're living. And if you don't get a handle on that, and I think that's why a lot of times these diet programs and, these all these diet programs fail, like 95% failure rate, is because they've never addressed the deep psychology and philosophy behind changing your life. Changing your life, like you said, is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done.
Right.
It just will be. It'll be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, is changing your life.
It's so true. And it's interesting. I had recently somebody say to me, oh my God, but it's going to be the holidays and we're going to be with our family. And, it's a certain culture and this is the kind of food. And I was like, everybody comes from a certain culture. We all come from cultural backgrounds. There's always going to be a holiday to celebrate. That doesn't mean A, you can't be with your family, and B, you can't celebrate, and C, you can't culturally be involved. But you can make adjustments. You can change habits that are going to benefit you versus harm you. And it's a choice. And it's going to start with your decision. It's going to start with, are you going to put yourself first? Are you going to put yourself in a place that you're going to feel better? Are you going to put yourself in a place that you're going to be proud of the decisions you made that make you feel better, and influence others to make adjustments? Because look, I could eat pasta till the cows come home. That was my meat and potatoes. My pasta is now spaghetti squash, and it has been off and on for many, many years. Even though I carried the weight, there's lots of different reasons why that all came on. That's that's another story, and that doesn't need to be tapped into. But it is an adjustment, and it's a perfect example of how do you do something that makes you feel good, that makes you feel you're participating, but that is not going to harm you. For me, when it comes to like a conversation about drinking, you know, obviously that's a big social, I don't want to use the word issue, but it is. It's part of our environment that, oh, you know, we're introduced to, we're surrounded by, and then it becomes, for some, collateral damage. And it's a cause and effect that affects a lot of people, whether it's the individual or the ones that love you around you. Thankfully, that has never been one of those things. And I could be in a room with people who are, but the joke is, I really don't want to. It doesn't mean that I can't be at a dinner table with people who are drinking. It doesn't mean that I have a problem. I just don't like the way I feel because it affects me so quickly. So it's one of those things that I have been able to observe a lot of people go through all sorts of, you know, evolutions through participating, and, you know, and I've also survived being at the hands of somebody who could not drink, and it caused negative effects, and in turn negative effects on me. So I also believe that we have a world of less leaders and a lot more followers. And I think that it's just dumbfounding. I hate to use that word, but it's dumbfounding to me that when we get to a stage of we're no longer in elementary school and middle school and high school, that people actually still don't evolve past that point of their own individual selves and love enough on themselves to know that they can stand on their own and they don't have to be influenced by others. With that said, coming back into one's household and those environments and what we're surrounded by environmentally, to your point, we do have to take stands for the betterment of ourselves. Listen, in my household, you know, we could have plenty of negative things that don't do well in my body. And I literally will turn around and say, oh my God, if I have this stuff around me, it's like an alcoholic, and I will, you know, it will have a negative effect on me. Now, do I want to deny others of having those things? No, but at the same time, I also know it's not good for them either.
Yeah, I mean, it is clearly something that affects everyone. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's probably the hardest thing for people to do is to clean up their diet. You know, like it's you know, they could do it temporarily for a short period of time, but to do it permanently for the rest of your life, you know, there's a lot that they feel like they're going to miss out on. You know, and you know, they're going to miss out on those delicious brownies and cookies and pizza and all of these amazing treats and goodies and stuff like that. You know, and the ironic part of that is that when that's not going to be the truth, like a lot of times those are just, it's just the story you tell yourself about it, and then it's the memory cells triggering that taste in your mouth, you know, that it starts to crave those things and tempt you to have them, and at the end of the day, if you were to deprive yourself of those things, over time, that signal would stop. It would cease to exist. And you know, so if you start eating really, really healthy, and you if you did like a 6 months or a year of eating really, really well and eating tasty foods, like I'm on keto. So for me, it's the most tastiest food out there. I mean, it's like, it's got lots of fats, and it's good fats, and it's savory and hearty and everything, and so the foods are so good, you know, and so I think about, oh my God, you know, like if I had to, you know, if someone was to like get like put like some you know, like let's say bread, you know, or a sandwich or a cake or something like that in front of me, I would be like, I mean, there's no way I would want to eat that, because because I'm so, my taste buds are so connected to the history of what I've been eating for so long, that those foods no longer have any power or impact on me any longer. And it just takes time for that to happen, because if you ask someone what their number one reason for them to stop dieting, it was because of the cravings and the temptations and the feeling of restriction,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that feeling of restriction is really what burns people out, right?
Yeah.
And so I always feel like, well, you should never feel, I feel unrestricted on my diet. Like, I can eat pretty much anything that I want to eat, but what I want to eat are things that are good for me. So it's like, it's just, there's a period of time that you just need to kind of get through to get to the other side. You got to get through the woods to the other side so that you can kind of see for yourself how you evolve and change. But if you're sitting at the place you're sitting at right now, yeah, you have cravings. Yeah, you have temptations. Yeah, you want the sugar, you want the treats, you want all these things because you programmed your body and your mind to take in those things for so long, and you have such a history of it. It's almost part of your DNA. So yeah, there's going to be you're trying to make a change. You have got to give yourself a runway to make that change, and it's not going to be a couple weeks. It's going to probably be a few months. It could be a year, and so you have to be like, you got to be excited about the journey, and you got to be equally excited about depriving yourself of these foods as you would eating these foods. And that's the trickery that you have to think about when it comes to mindset, because there's a lot of studies. I don't know if you've ever studied, like, have you ever read the book Atomic Habits or things like that, where it's like, people are, what they're really addicted to isn't so much the treat itself, it's the anticipation of the treat. Okay. Right. Because once you have the treat, you're like, oh, what? I mean, what's the big deal, right? And so it's the upcoming anticipation of it is what you're really addicted to, And but if you were to come in there and deprive yourself of that, there's also a serotonin. Your serotonin's going to rise up from the discipline of controlling yourself, and you're going to have a sense of pride that's going to come in, and you're going to feel way more amazing from that than you would the dopamine rush that you're getting prior to eating that food. And that's what people don't really understand, is that there's another system that your body uses as well. So you're not depriving yourself is also based on that reward system. And so yeah, when you deprive yourself of these things, at first you're going to be in this like wrestling match with yourself. Mm-hmm. You're going to be thinking, okay, am I going to be able to deprive myself of this, or is this going to overrun me and I'm going to eat this? As soon as you think that way, you're going to eat it because because you've already given yourself an out. But if you just say, I'm depriving myself, I'm stubborn. I'm the most stubborn person on the planet. And guess what? I'm not eating that. And if you did that to yourself intentionally, and this is what I always tell people, don't wait for the time that it comes up onto you, by accident, when it's unplanned. Intentionally go to a bakery, look at everything, look at these foods, deprive yourself of them, and walk out. And do that several times. Go to the grocery store, walk down the candy aisle, pick the candy up, look at it, go pick up all these things that you want to eat, that you really, really want to eat and you're craving. Go look at it, feel them, look at them, and stuff like that. Put them down and walk out.
It's so funny you said that. I'm sorry, because I actually have done just those things in like the last 6-7 months. Not in a, I don't even know if it was an intentional sort of way, but I've done it in a way that, whether it was grocery shopping or being in the French bakery to pick up something, for us, not a pastry for me, but for Randy, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I can't, that's not my path. That doesn't serve me. I know how that feels, and I know what that triggers.
That's right.
And that's not going to be a positive reaction. That's going to be that's going to cause the cause and effect. the ring in the water effect is going to be so deplorable, not in the sense that I can't turn it around, but what did that serve?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, to a lot of people, it's a treat, right? And it's a reward to treat themselves to foods that destroy their lives, you know? And so, but there's a way to do it. And I always say, do it after you have cultivated the discipline necessary for you to be able to walk away, say no, you know, because then when you do want to have a treat, it's on your terms. It's not on the treat's terms. It's on your terms. You get to decide when you want to have a treat, not the treat deciding when you're going to have the treat.
It's so good. It's so good. I love that. So I just want to wrap this up and say, you know, when you got on this path of wanting to help people, and at this point, now that you've been doing this for so many years, you know, being of health and wellness and coaching, like, what would you want to leave people with in regards to just, what would your statement be at this point about just going forward, who you are and what you want to leave with the world for, and in regards to bettering life and people's health?
Yeah, my first, it's a good question. My first career was in the martial arts. You know, like I was a Taekwondo master, and it's during there that I got into kinesiology and did all that kind of stuff, and really learned about strength conditioning in sort of like a parallel manner. And then they kind of came together around the Olympics, you know, and then afterwards I got really into fitness at that point, and really driven by health and fitness. And a lot of that was, my first career was chasing gold medals.
Mm-hmm.
I always say my first year was chasing gold medals, and you know, I didn't win a gold medal, but I was part of a team that won a gold medal. Mm-hmm. And then my second career was about making money. You know, mm-hmm. You know, I had 4 gyms; they did really well. Of course, I don't no longer have them, and so, you know, my third career, I think, is about sharing myself with everyone, sharing my life with everyone. You know, I just want to give people as much as I can of myself. I want to help as many people as I can. I don't even care if I make a profit or make any money, because I'm just driven into wanting to make the world a better place. And I always feel like if money comes, great. You know, but it's not what drives me. What drives me and what gets me up in the morning is helping people have a better life, and changing their lives for the better, and seeing how that impacts the world in a positive way. And so my goal is to help as many people as I can, millions of people, everyone. I want to help the whole world. You know, I want to try to leave a legacy where it was like, I was here and I helped as many people as I can become healthy, because I know that if I can make people healthy and they become a better version of themselves, they are going to change the world collectively. And that's what I would want to do.
Well, it's ironic too, because as we both know, we all connected through the pandemic because of social media, because all of a sudden there I was no longer on a film set because that was all shut down. And because I launched an athleisure brand, did I reach out randomly to Rachel? And through that, did we make the running joke about, how do you plug this in? We should do a podcast. And then I think it was like about a year later afterwards that I launched my podcast. And then we sat down a year ago. And to the point of all of this is that I think personally, the gift of meeting you and Rachel and the amount of positive influence. I mean, I don't even know your clientele. I just know what my personal experience is. So if I have this experience, I can only imagine the magnitude of the many that you have affected over the time and continue to. And I just want to share what a gift that you are, what a positive influence that you are, what a joy it is to have you guys in my life. And I probably said that a year ago, but the difference of the impact a year later, unconsciously, when I wasn't even, I mean, that was like November of 2021. I didn't even start working with Rachel until a few months ago, ironically, at most.
Yeah.
So I just think that I feel fortunate. I'm not grateful that a pandemic happened, but I'm grateful for social media and technology that connected us, that allowed us for our paths to cross, you know, whether that was random or was it meant to be. I definitely think in the universal life of, you know, energy and atmospheric asteroids or whatever you want to call it, the blips that were crossing paths, our blips were supposed to cross paths and do something greater than just cross paths. And so I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for what you're doing for many. I want to thank you for who you are and who you show up being, and the joy that I get always interacting with you, because I always love conversing with you. I always think you bring so much to the table. And I think that I hope that out of this conversation that more people get influenced to reach out to you, because I think that, you know, I know that that's part of what now I want to do, is to get back to who I originally wanted to be, one of the many hats that I wanted to wear, which was healing people. And I do think that this is part of that bigger picture as I'm figuring it out, as I'm evolving. And being around people like you and Rachel is just really it really is about recreating my more positive environment that I think of myself as being, but I know that I was definitely, you know, you have to cut through all the shit to get to the good diamonds. And, you know, I feel like I'm finally finding some beautiful diamonds, and I want to say thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, that means so much to me. It's like, it's almost overwhelming. I just love it. Yeah, I really do believe it's all about who we attract in our lives, right? You know, and so I'm so grateful that you asked me onto your podcast. It's anytime I get an opportunity to be able to speak to other people and talk about what I'm passionate about, it just makes my day. I was looking forward to this podcast all day. You know, even last night I was like, okay, I can't wait to talk to Felicia. It's gonna be amazing, you know. And so I really think you got an amazing gift, and you are definitely someone that I want to have close to me in the future. And I'm really, really thankful for having you a part of our program. So thank you so much.
Oh God, thanks, Jake. Big hugs and kisses. You are you're delicious.
Ditto.
Thank you so much.
So if you had the opportunity to work with Jake Platt, would you not be tripping over yourselves to get to this man, to have him and his partner, Rachel Siegel, help you figure things out? I know I would, because I am, and I am here to say they are incredible. They are passionate. They are kind. They are empathetic. They are knowledgeable. They are professional experts that really are effective for all walks of life of people. And their goal is to affect people from 40 and above to age the most graceful way possible, in the healthiest way possible, by changing your journey where you are for the better. So join me next week for our 60-second episode, and I look forward to you continuing to be a part of this podcast community on Camp Fifi Uncensored. I love to have you join, subscribe, share, and listen on any of your favorite platforms, because this is a community where the spirit is young, the soul is wise, and the life stories are vast. And who doesn't love to sit around and talk about anything and everything from cannolis to egg in the holes? And don't forget the s'mores. I know I do. So join me next week. Much love. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great, safe, wonderful week with your family and friends. Bye for now.